All right, today I'm going to show you how I think the proper way of searing a salt and pepper crusted steak is. So I have a New York strip steak over here because I don't have a fillet, so we're just going to make a video with this. So I just cut the end off and I tied it with twine. Obviously, fillet and New York strip is different, and you wouldn't cut a normal steak like this. But anyways, I did it just for the video. So I pulled, so this is my as close as I can to proper steak without the whole kitchen setup and all that. So yes, I am using a non-stick and I am using an induction burner. That's the best I got. And these tongs with silicone thingies. So don't talk to me about how, anyways. So step one, pull out the steak, let it come to room temp. Step two, make sure it's dry, very dry. Because to get a nice crust, you need it to be dry, and also you don't want to moisten up the salt and pepper too much. So I had it resting on paper towel this whole time, but I got a fresh piece of paper towel over here and I'm drying it out again. Can mush it around and squeeze it. So that's pretty dry. I'm gonna fold it the other way. Go one more time. Okay, that's a dry steak. So I have the pan heating on low for now since I'm doing this part, but I can turn it up now. Okay, so I have a tray over here. We'll put the steak on it. Put this on the side, throw this away. So salt or pepper first? I would say pepper first, because when you add salt on it, it draws out moisture, and I don't want the pepper to burn as much, because when the moisture comes out, it's gonna hit whatever it's touching first, which is, I want it to be a pepper. I don't want to grind it. I don't want to put the setting too big, because it won't stick. Basically, it'll fall off. So and I don't want to go all the way small, because then it'll be too fine. So I'm gonna go right in the middle. Pepper, pat it in, flip it over. So the more pepper you put, the less salt is gonna be able to stick. So I don't know. I want to put the right amount, and you don't want it to be a fully super peppery, too much pepper steak. So I'm gonna pick up whatever's left with the edges. So you can see there's a decent amount of pepper. Would I want more pepper on my steak? Probably not. So that's the right amount for me. You can put more if you want. Okay, so pan is getting hot. We want it very hot because I'm gonna hold it until it sears. So salt is kosher salt. Don't use granulated salt. So really pack it on there, press it in, flip it over, pack it in. Okay, so like I said, the salt is gonna draw out some moisture, and my pan is not quite hot yet. And this is good because I do want it to get some of the, I want it to let some of the moisture out, because dry stuff sticks to wet stuff. So pepper first to make sure it stays on and it doesn't fall off, and then salt on it a little before you want to sear, so it can draw out some more moisture, so we can crust it with a little bit more salt and pepper. Now you might think, why didn't I just use less paper towels initially? And the reason is, I don't want to, less moisture overall is better. So to get moisture to come out of the meat to moisten the outside would be a good thing. Okay. So pan is getting decently hot. We'll go in with oil. It's gonna be a lot more oil than normal. Normally you want to get like this char and the sear and the hard brown on your meat. But when I'm crusting a steak, I'm looking for it to build a layer of basically deep fried meat rather than charred meat. So oil's getting hot. You can see the surface of it is starting to get a little shiny. That means moisture is coming out and it's hydrating everything that's on the surface right now. So now I seasoned and a lot went on the pan. So I'm just gonna go like this to pick it up and down. Don't do this, because then you'll just coat salt on the edge that's pushing into the rest of it. So up and down and press into it. Flip it over. Get what we can. Okay. And turn on the fan here, or the hoods. So it's pretty hot right now. I'm going to turn it up. And which side do I want to sear first? I got this side. So I always want to do the nice sear on the nicer side. I'm going to say this is the nicer side. So as you can see, it's gripping as much salt as possible. And actually, I'm going to do a little bit more pepper on it. Whatever sticks, sticks. Now, it was dry. I put pepper. It was dry. I put salt. It got wet. Then I coated more salt on it. Now, I'm going to put it on the fine setting, and I'm going to get whatever I can on there, knowing that some of this is going to fall off, but at least it'll create a dry crust. Okay, so with that, you see where the oil is pooled right in the middle? I don't want to put it down because it'll make the pepper and the salt will contact the pan. So I kind of want to dry it off. You see how I can dry it off and then drop it in. Go lower heat a little. And you want to make sure there's oil around the whole thing. So it's kind of like deep frying. Now I don't want to move it around too much, because when it's cooking, all the moisture is coming out the sides and it's causing it to shrink inwards, and you're creating that crust, and you want the crust to stay obviously attached to the steak. You don't want flakes of salt to come off because they didn't get cooked and dried onto the piece of meat. So you can see the smoke coming up on the pan, because I'm only searing one steak. So I'm going to turn it down again. So if you look at the edge, you can see a crust starting to develop, and you can hear the sizzling isn't as intense. So let's take a look at it. So I've only been searing for about 1 minute, and that's the crust I got already. All right, so now I'm gonna flip it. I'm gonna move it over here and a re-grip. Now, there's all this salt that did fall off. And, oh, dropped the steak there. That's why you don't use silicone spatulas. But I shook it to get all the salt to pool to one side so I could drop it on top of, or attempt to drop it directly on top of oil. Because you see all the salt that fell off? If I put the steak on top of that, then it wouldn't be on top of oil. So that's basically what it is. So you can see it's a nice steak, nice sear. I've only seared it for about a minute, and that's the color you got right there. You see it goes flush all the way, very nice sear. And we're trying to get it on both sides. Normally the second side has a weaker sear because it cools the pan, but we're trying to go for a double-sided nice sear. And also keep in mind the moisture on the second side had more time to leach out, so it's not going to be as crusty or dry. That's why I didn't do the pepper, because we only need one side to look nicer. You can see the pan is getting hot. I'm tilting it to kind of seal up the edges. I'm going to roll it to pick up the heat. Use the oil to pick up the heat from the other side of the pan. Bring it back. Now, this is why flames are better, because even when you tilt it, it'll heat, whereas like this one, the heating element is flat, so it's only going to heat up while it's flat. So you can hear the sizzling when it's in the center got a lot less intense. That's because there's no moisture escaping from the bottom anymore because it's already dry. So let me show you the bottom. So bottom side, also a beautiful crust. And I think I'll end the video there. That's how I do a salt and pepper crusted steak. So that's how you get nice sear on both sides. I'm just gonna let it, I'm not done cooking, and I'm not gonna eat it directly off of this meat tray, but I just wanted to show you the, so main thing is I want to show you the searing technique on the beginning. So that's the top, that's the bottom, both sides seared very nicely. So from here, I'll either do the method where you keep flipping it every 30 seconds just to get it to warm all the way to the center, or you can throw it in the oven if it's a fat steak. That's today's video, how to salt and pepper sear a steak by me.